Hi, folks. Larry Rolla here. I didn't screw up today, but they re they gave me some updates on my computer, and everything changed on the bottom. So I was lucky enough to. We started at 7 o'clock, and I finally figured out how to get my friends on. So today we have my pal Joe, my
Hello.
pal Eddie, and then we have a special friend who we've been trying to get on for months and months and months. And he's a friend to everybody in harness racing from the early years of Roosevelt Raceway. He had a trucking outfit called Woodbury, and that's how we all know him is Ron Woodbury. Um, and he shipped everybody all over the country for years and years and years and years. And he's one of the he's not only did he ship them, but there was a lot of people that he shipped that couldn't pay, and but he shipped them, and he's probably I had dinner with him maybe a year ago, and he's the nicest guy that just one of the nicest guys, just a great guy. Let me bring him on. He's going to tell us a bunch of stories today about all the trainers that were at Roosevelt and uh, uh, and Yonkers. And here he is, my pal, our pal, Ron. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Larry.
Hey,
Hi,
Ron.
Joe.
Hey, Ron.
Hi,
How are you?
Eddie. Thank you for having me on, Larry. I really appreciate it.
Well,
You
we've been
lost
dying
me.
to hear
Thank
these
you for that nice
stories.
introduction.
We've been dying to hear these stories for years and years and years, and you're the only one that could tell these stories.
Okay.
Why don't you just start from the beginning? From the beginning when you first started the horse transportation.
Okay. I was in the dump trailer business with a friend of mine, Pete Horan. His father was Francis Horan. He was a thoroughbred trainer. And another friend of mine, Dick Asaro. And the overload police were brutal. We used to drive these tractor trailers, not the 10 wheelers, but the big tractor trailers. And you can only have 80,000 pounds. Well, these things weigh 165,000 pounds going down the road. So you're fair game, to the police. Luckily, they only had one car, big station wagon. They pull you over, you go right up on the scales. The first ticket's 500, the second's 1,000, and the third's 5,000. So they were putting people out of business like crazy. So we were looking for something to do. This is in early 1970, and this friend of mine, Peter Ann, I thought he was my friend. He said, "Oh, my father's a trainer at Belmont. He's got a nice three-horse van, and he knows some connections. We could start doing business." So I said, "But we need more business than that." So we looked around, and I found a guy in Glen Head, New York, called Alex Nichols. Does anybody remember him?
Yeah,
Alex Nichols. He
Alex
used
Nichols Agency.
Yep, he used to have on the side of the truck. It only costs 8 nickels more to go first class. He he was a great guy, one of the best businessmen you'll ever meet. He was actually a German Jew. His name was Alex Nikolocic, but he sold me the business. Oh, I had two broke down trucks and a broke down six-horse van. But he said, "Oh, you can fix them right up." But you got so much money. He said these trucks get, hundreds of dollars to go to Yonkers and hundreds of dollars to go here and $100 to go there. So my friend and I, Peter Ann, and we started the business. My friend Dick Asaro, and also in that business, it's very hard to get paid, hauling sand and gravel. But my friend Dick Asaro never had a problem getting paid because his uncle was Vinny Asaro and his
Okay.
godfather. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Oh, I know who it is.
Larry knows who that is, don't you, Larry?
I know who it is.
Okay, Vinny Asaro was Dick Asaro's godfather and uncle. So whenever we worked for all the big guys on Long Island, nobody would get paid. Dick got paid. So he said, "Well, I got a good thing." So it was just Pete and I. We got the trucks. Started August 8th, 1970, Alex Nichols had the trucks parked down. There's when you go into Roosevelt Raceway, you go down the road to the stop sign. You can make a left to the double letter barns or make a right to the training track going past Kelly's Harness Shop. And right there, next to Manure Pit, Alex had these broke down trucks that he sold us, and the authority to go with it. Which we wanted to do. Well, the authority wasn't that great. I had no idea what I was up against the first time I saw one of George Hutt's trucks roll in. And we moved in. 20 minutes after I got there, Cal Coolidge hit me up for rent. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. And he come walking over, all bent over, and
Cal
you got,
Coolidge was the stall guy, right?
yeah, yeah. So he said, "You got to leave. You got to
Yeah,
leave."
yeah.
This was just a shack. You walked in, there was a window with a closet. I put my toolbox in the closet, and I had a couch and a lazy boy I found up in the groom's building. And so he said, I said, well, I just got here. Can I stay a little bit? He said, well, you can stay for 1 month, but then you have to leave. So I gave him $100, and believe me, I didn't have had anything. I stayed there every month for I can't tell you how many years. He came and asked me for that $100, which I was happy for. You know what I mean? To stay there, and I had the little piece of property next to the shack. It wasn't even paved. Roosevelt wasn't even paved at that time, and again, an hour later, I see this big, beautiful. At that time, it was called George Hutt Horse Transportation. These big, beautiful freight liners come in, and I mean, it was like I looked at the junk I had in him. I said, "How am I ever gonna?" But believe it or not, Alex did have some business, not much. Anyway, I went around and I solicited those guys, and they gave me a break. They threw me a horse here, horse there. No trips, no big trips. Like maybe some horses to the farm, Jason's farm, Bailey's farm, all those guys out east and everything, and maybe a couple horses to Freehold, and I got work from Jerry Pacino, and I immediately met their agent. His name was Dale Anderson. He wore a big cowboy hat. They called him Teddy. Does
Yeah.
anybody remember him?
Yeah.
I remember Big Teddy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him too.
Yeah, Teddy was a good person, an honest person. He knew his business, but he had all that firepower. Oh, he could get 10 trucks in there at one time if he wanted. So he had people wanted to go on good trucks. They don't want to go on broken down junk. And so he helped me the best he could by giving me some experience into the business. I was just hauling sand and gravel. The only thing we had in common was you went around the corner just as easy with that big truck as you did with horses. So he helped me with he would give me tips if he couldn't do something, put me onto people, but not he had everybody. He had all the big customers at that time. Stanley Dancer was in Barn A, and right across from him was Vernon Dancer. Later on, Buddy Regan took over that barn. But we became good friends. He invited me to his house for dinner a couple of times. I went to his house. We actually went to the movies. He surprised me. He wanted to see Fiddler on the Roof. Can you imagine Teddy wanted to see that? Wish we went. The funny part is we went to like a Fridays before dinner, and he ordered, and the waitress said to him, "Sir, you get a salad with your meal. What kind of dressing would you like?" And Teddy said, "Just fix it for me the way you do your old man, all right, darling?" That's how he talked, right? It was like so mortifying. She just like ran away. That, yeah, and he always chewed tobacco. He had that big scroll thing in the back of his pocket. He was a great employee for them. Everybody knew him. He came to work 6 days a week. He got there at 7:30 in the track kitchen. At 8 o'clock, he was in the barn area. At 7:30, he was in front of the one of the grooms building where Lou Martinez, his father, had his barber shop, and
Right.
he played cards. He played hearts till 4 o'clock. You could set your watch because I was at the end of that road. I could see his blue station wagon. 4 o'clock, he'd make the turn. He'd pull right in front of me. Go, "You all right?" And off he goes. And like I said, he did help me with many years, for many years. I'm just to kind of reminisce. I don't have to tell you guys because anybody but I got a list of trainers at Roosevelt Raceway you can't
Wow.
believe. But some of the ones You guys know, you remember Angelo Annabelle,
Sure.
Paul Appel,
Yes.
Joe Bonacorsa, Gerard
Yes.
McDonald and his father,
Yep.
Gary Castleman, Bobby
Yep.
Cherricks, Frank Darish, Bob
Yep.
Donofrio, Nancy
Oh
Knockman,
yeah.
Yep.
Steve Demas, Tom Foster,
Yep.
Eldon Harner, Andy Getz,
Oh,
Gene Matucci, Billy Myers, Frank Muley, Renee Poland, George
oh,
Napolitano, Austin Hope, Marvin Maker, Mike Santa Maria, Pat Quagliata, Marvin Proman. I told Joe the story about him. Wendy Samora, Russell Rash, Dick Thomas, George Wampatish, Sal Sparacino, Jim Tolman, and Andy Santarama. Those plus everybody else that you guys know. They were. I don't know, Larry. Do you remember? Do you remember Marvin Proman?
Of course, I remember him. I
Okay.
remember him. In fact, he called me up years after he got out of the horse business. He was into going to ballets, Broadway shows, all of that kind of stuff. And he invited me to a ballet or something. And I says, Marvin, that's not my thing. I'd rather go. I want to go see Sinatra. I don't want to see a ballet. But
But he
yeah,
he
I
was
remember. I
wasn't he
remember.
the short little?
he was always dressed in a suit.
Wasn't he the
He was
short guy with the
he wasn't too
glasses?
short. He
The
he
little
he, he was he was always dressed in a wool suit, even in the summer, with a flannel shirt, with a tie, with a hat. I mean, and his face was oozing sweat constantly. He had the misfortune of having a rat run up one of his pant legs, and he had to get one of his testicles removed.
Really? That's
Yeah,
true?
true story.
Holy shit!
True story. Right, right.
Yep.
You remember when they used to have the manure pits in the back there? There was the manure trucks. There was a million
Yeah.
rats back there. One ran right up his leg. He had a heart attack. He was screaming like a wild man and bit him right in the nut. He had to go to down the street to the hospital, and he was castrated. Had one nut, but he was a nice guy. But he
He
had
was a
Oh,
nervous wreck when you talked to him.
a nervous wreck. A
Yeah.
nervous wreck. If he told you something, you wrote it down. You said, "I got it, Marvin." He had to repeat it 10 times. He was afraid. He was
Yeah.
afraid that
Yeah.
you wouldn't remember. But it was just those are just some of the people. But all those people, I fixed up those trucks, and I fixed up those trucks and started hauling people. Unfortunately, 5 6 months after I started, my friend Pete Haran decided we weren't making any money. We weren't. So he quit me. I bought his end out for almost nothing. He went back to, hauling sand and gravel. And then that was tough the first year. Then I come up with this race and return. A lot of people didn't want to go to Yonkers, and they like if you take them at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, took them to Yonkers, wait for the horse to race, and bring them back. And I had one horse, two horses. I had Dick Richardson, Apples Thomas. Before I even hauled them, gave me horses. Buddy Regan, they liked it. And Buddy Gilmore, all those guys I mentioned. Um, I'm sure you know that if you wanted to see Buddy Gilmore, Sal Sparacino, Mike Santa Maria, Angelo Annabelle, all you had to do was find one of them, and you would have found all the other ones.
Yep.
You know what I mean, Joe? They were all in Buddy Gilmore's. If you want to look for any of them, just go to Buddy Gilmore. They were all in it, and Real
Yep.
Comer. And they were all there, but they all loved that idea of going. So I kindly, but they didn't like the idea because if they had a horse you had a horse in the first, and somebody had a horse in the ninth, that race went off at 11:59 at night, 1 minute before midnight. You couldn't go into on a Saturday. You couldn't go
Right.
into. You couldn't. That would make it 7 days. And then finally it built up where I would put 3 on one, 3 on another. And one time we had 3 tractor trailers going a night with the first 3, the second 3, and the last 3. A lot of people when I got in good with Houghton and Apples Thomas, he didn't even send his horse to see Yonkers anymore. We just raced a return there. Same thing with Buddy Regan. He liked that idea. Buddy was a very nice guy. Got along good with him. A little tough to handle in the beginning because he come up under Stanley and everything had to be absolutely perfect in every way. You know, Linda Toscano worked for him too.
Yeah, of course.
That's what she started. I
Yeah.
think she worked for Buddy Regan and him, and that's how I slowly was able to build up the business. I had no phone in that shack, and every time I got a phone call, it was Ron from Woodbury. Go to Kelly's harness shop. I would go there. Hello, yeah. Go to Houghton's. Go there. Finally, after about 3 months, the telephone operator. Her name was Ruth something. I don't know, Ruth something. She was the head of the whole thing. You couldn't have a phone. Nobody could have a phone. Apple's had a phone. Just a very few people had them. And she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Ron from Woodbury. She said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I have a horse transportation business." She says, "I got three calls on hold for you over here. I can't have all these girls just answering the phone for you for a secretary. Call the telephone company. I'll give you permission to get a phone put in." I said, I called them. They come in and put a pay phone in that shed. Remember that? Can you believe that?
Yeah.
A pay phone, not even a real phone. I had to have $20 in quarters on the windowsill all the time to collect calls from the drivers or to make calls. But it was better than nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
It was better
Yeah.
than nothing. And then finally, things started getting better. I bought another company called Chester Sayre Horse Transportation. They were from down in Delaware. He was a big guy at one time, and he had 10 beautiful brand new Dorsey trailers, the ones with the drop roof that you could put the race bikes, but they were run down. And he would only sell me those trailers if I bought the business from him, the whole business and the authority. The authority that I got from Alex Nichols was okay, but it was questionable. If I was going to give Hutt, he was still Hutt then, any competition, he would have been able to shut me down. So I bought the business from Chester Sayre, brought the trailers to Roosevelt Raceway in the back, and I started cleaning them up and fixing them up. And his authority covered horses of all kinds, United States, and 4 Canadian provinces. That was the best authority you could possibly get. And intrastate New York and Pennsylvania. That means you could pick up in Pennsylvania, deliver in Pennsylvania, pick up in New York, and deliver in New York. And that was tough, and it was important because when the sire stakes went from Buffalo to Batavia, so that's intrastate, right? Before I got that authority, I used to go over the bridge into Canada, back out and into Batavia. So I could call that an interstate shipment, not interstate.
Mhm.
And Gutwall took me to court. Long story short, George Hutt sold out to Bob Gutwall. He, in turn, bought a company called Brookledge, and they combined it. You never see any more George Hutt names on any of the trucks. They're all Brookledge, and they're very, very big now. They have big, beautiful trucks. But with the evolution of the 2-horse trailers and 6-horse trailers, major horse transportation carriers in the East are almost,
Extinct.
defunct. I'm sure Ali DeSimone and his brother got a couple of tractor trailers, but as far as hauling, there's no breakups anymore. You broke up from Roosevelt to Yonkers to the Meadowlands. You had a Liberty Bell breakup, Brandywine breakup, all these tracks. You had the Sire Stakes. The Sire Stakes are still okay, but they had tons of horses on the Sire Stakes. When you would go from Buffalo to Batavia, to Vernon, to Saratoga, up to Blue Bonnets, back down again, and across, and end up in Vernon. And then the Grand Circuit, which is almost defunct, was huge. All the big stables had tons of horses on there. It started at the Meadowlands, and it went from the Meadows. I'm sorry, from the Meadowlands to the Meadows to Springfield, Springfield to DuQuoin, DuQuoin to either Detroit or up into Canada for a couple of races, then end back into Lexington for the Lexington meet, and then, of course, the Lexington sale. And I had to have a salesman on that. My salesman on that was a guy that used to train for Del Insco. His name was Gene Mangrum, or Lloyd Mangrum. His brother-in-law was Junior, as he's known. I think Larry knows him. He fixed the big triple at Roosevelt a couple of times. You know Junior, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Why would Larry know him?
Well, because Larry said he didn't handle Roosevelt at that time, and yeah, and that was
I
that
also
was
know Arlo Nelson. Remember Arlo Nelson?
yeah, he worked for Arlo Nelson went with me and Apples Thomas to World Trade Center to when Bob Gutwell sued me for doing the interstate work when I did, before he knew I even had the authority. But Gene and Junior worked for a guy called Shuttleworth. You remember him, Larry?
Sure. He left after one little scandal they had with
Yeah,
Gilmore, and he went back and he got into the pawn business.
yeah.
He was
Listen,
Bob
he-
Shuttleworth. He was
yeah.
something.
So this was Gene's brother-in-law. His name was Forrest Gary.
Oh
They
boy.
they called him Junior, right? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
believe it or not, a small world.
As far as Gary is
27 years ago, 27 years ago, I was in Louis' house in his office. We were trading stocks, and Larry walked in, and Louis introduced me to him. I did not remember at the time. Larry has such a good memory. He reminded me of that 2 years ago,
Yeah, I remember
right?
that day. Yeah.
And also a small world. Gene Mangrum, that's Junior's brother-in-law, and I were at Tommy Lacento's farm, and I saw Larry Larry, you were there with Junior, and you were betting against Mike Gagliardi. Should I say what you were betting? Doesn't matter, right?
Cockfights.
You're betting
Cockfight.
you're betting chickens.
Chickens. Yeah.
They were cock. They don't call it cock. They call them. And Tommy Lucento had a huge entrance before he went, and he had a big thing out. And I was there with Gene. He goes, "That's my brother-in-law over there." I didn't know that it was Larry Rolla, but I did know Mike Gagliardi and Larry and Junior were killing Mike Gagliardi. 5,000 a chicken. I think you won 4 or 5 and and
Wow.
you won 4 or 5 and he only won one. You came in a big limo. Remember that, Larry?
I remember.
Came in a big limo.
Yes,
I believe they bet $5,000 a race, right? And you know how long these a fight? You know how long these fights last?
one lasted about 2 seconds. The other one lasted about 10 seconds.
Yeah, they just come up, hit each other, boom, one falls over dead. And then I said, "That's your brother-in-law?" He said, "Yeah." But anyway, he got caught for what he was doing,
How
and
did you know about that, Ron? How did you know about that?
because my friend Gene, the guy I'm talking about, has moved to California in 1980, and I told him about you. I said, "Did you ever hear of a guy named Larry Rolla?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Don't you remember we were at Tommy Lucento's farm fighting chickens?" Oh, we weren't fighting; we were just visitors. And he said Larry was with Junior, and they were betting against Mike Gagliardi. And I said, "Oh, that's who you."
Tommy trained the chickens, the cockfight, the chickens for
Yeah,
Mike. And Tommy says they can't get beat.
yeah.
And every one of them got beat. He didn't win one. Everyone got beat.
No, I know you left it a big
Junior
limo.
Forrest Gary was he was. Do you remember the time? Do you remember the time when Forrest Gary, in the card room where at Roosevelt, where Lou Martinez's father had the barber shop, they
Yeah,
always played. They always had these poker games, and everybody, after 7 guys, you couldn't get in, so everybody was sitting at the smaller tables waiting for a seat. And Forrest Gary was in there one day, and him and Lucian were waiting for a seat at the table. So
yeah,
they were playing. They were playing 5-card stud, I think, and they were playing and playing and playing. No limit, just the two of them. And I
yeah,
happened to be standing right next to, I think, Lucian, and waiting for a seat at the big table.
yeah.
And they were going back and forth. Finally, they get a hand. Forrest Gary is the dealer. He
Right.
deals the cards. Lucian picks up like a straight flush, or he asks for one card. He gets a card, and it's a straight. He gets a straight flush. Anyway, it's a no limit game. They're betting, raising. Finally, they run out of money. There's about 30,000-40,000 in the pot. and they just keep raising each other with markers. And then Lucian says, "Look, this is crazy because I'm not going to stop. Why don't we do one more raise and that's it?" So they said, "Okay." And so Lucian says, Forrest says, "Okay, him. I call you." So Lucian says, "Straight flush," and Forrest Gary says, "How high?" Lucian had it to the jack. Forrest had it to the king, and Forrest won. I'll never
Oh my
forget.
God.
Yeah.
And Forrest
Oh,
Gary
shit.
was the dealer. He was the
Wow.
dealer right hand. And
Yeah,
Forrest,
he went to jail. You know, he was convicted, and he went to jail. He went into this prison in Connecticut because Gene would always have to go and visit him with his wife because his wife was his sister, and you know they just wear khaki pants and a polo, right? I think I was thinking how contrary and how different things are today when you can put a person in jail for whatever he did, whether he did or he didn't, and you can't even put a person in jail in today's day and age for beating somebody up and throwing them under a train. But we're not going to get into that, right, Joe?
No.
Okay, so I'm just saying. I just thought that how do you put somebody in jail for a crime like that when today you can do anything and nothing happens to you? But anyway, so it was just get back.
No,
We were talking about. I forgot one good story here about Cal Coolidge. You know that Cal. It was very. If you shipped into Roosevelt Raceway with 3, 4 horses, it was very hard to get all 3 of your horses in the same barn, let alone stalls next to it. About the second or third year I was in business, I brought in 25 head of horses from South Florida for Joe Green. 25 head. That we brought them in, unloaded all the horses. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Joe Green came in. He had a pickup truck. He came down to the end of the road where my little shack was. He says, "Where did you put my horses?" I handed him a piece of paper with 16 barn numbers on it.
Wow.
16. He was in.
gee.
He thought he was gonna have a heart. He was so mad. 16 different barns, right? 16 different barns. Oh, it was unbelievable. And you know why he was in 16 different barns, right? Because Cal had sold every other stall all around. There was nothing available. But he went up to the
Oh, yeah, they
management.
greased his palm.
Yeah. He went to the management, and all afternoon you saw a groom with 2 horses here, 2 horses here, walking, trying to get them all together. He had 25 head and 16 barns.
wow.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that was crazy. But Cal was consistent. He didn't raise his $100 all those years. So I guess I should
Before
be
you go
happy.
on, Ron, before you go on, I want to say something to because we got.
Yeah, go ahead, ask me anything you want. I mean, I don't want to
I,
keep doing
I
all the
want to say
talking.
something about we have a maybe 50, 60 people that ask questions and
Sure,
comments, and
sure,
if I find one on there that pertains to you, I will do it. But I want to let everybody that's commenting now. I
sure.
want to say this tonight. I myself personally want to hear all the stories that Ron has. I haven't seen Ron except for the dinner we had since the Roosevelt days
Right,
and 60s, and I want to catch up. So what
right.
I'm going to do for all you guys that leave these comments and all you wonderful people that listen, I'm going to come on tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to be a special show just for you people. I will answer all your questions, any comments. We will have a discussion with every one of you people that leave comments. So I will be on tomorrow by myself, just for you people, because I get screamed at in nasty emails. Why don't you answer my? Why don't you?
Okay,
And
go ahead.
so I'm not going to do it now. I'm just all we want to do. This is your night, Ron. So I just
Oh, thank you. I feel
hear
honored.
stories. So go ahead. So that's it. So tune in, all you guys. Tune in tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and the whole show will be talking to all of you guys and girls that have comments or questions. So, but tonight it's going to be for Ron, and I want to hear these stories. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, I got like I said, this one page here has to do with the horses, but as far as the shipping was concerned, like I said, I tried to persevere, and fortunately for me, they wouldn't let Brookledge into Roosevelt Raceway because their drivers weren't union, and they wouldn't put. All they wanted was two drivers to be put in the union, and Brookledge wouldn't do it. Bob Gutwall is a Mennonite, and he doesn't believe in that. Um, they asked me if I would put two in. I said, well, I don't have any choice, so I did. So I put two in the union. But none of my guys wanted to really be in the union because the payroll for truck drivers hauling horses was geared around thoroughbred horses. They would say, like, we're going to pay you $48 for a trip up to Saratoga, right? I was paying X amount of dollars an hour plus meal money. You know, if you were out for lunch, you got meal money. Out for dinner, you got meal money. If you stayed in the truck more than 7 days straight, you got paid for 8. Those were just that was just my payroll. But the regular union pay for truck drivers was based, for the thoroughbreds, because it said you get X amount of dollars to go down to Philadelphia or any of the Finger Lakes or any of those. So my drivers completely rejected that. So the head guy at Roosevelt Raceway, he was a little short Italian guy, very nice. You know, he's on that crew that, comes in and paints and fills up potholes. He said to me, just put a couple of guys in and you'll be all right, which I did. So they didn't let Brookledge in. So now I had to go and meet Brookledge at Jason's farm. You remember where that Joe was around the corner?
Yeah.
Right? That was a pain in the ass.
Joel
Jason.
Jason.
Yeah. So Brookledge was getting the full rate all the way into Roosevelt Raceway, because Jason's farm was right down the road, right? And I
Right.
go in there bringing horses in for $15 a horse, at 11:30 at night. But I did it, and then they did something, and they got back, and Apples gave me more and more work. Finally, at the second time they went on strike, Apple said, if they go on a third time, he said, I won't take the business from you. I said, I would still have to give them something. He said, but if I were you, I'd start getting some more trucks. He said, I won't take it away from you. So I said, okay. And they did. They went on strike a third time.
For
And so
the
and that,
people that don't know, when you say Apples, that's Apples Thomas. He was Billy Houghton's second trainer.
that's right. His name Alfred Thomas. Yeah, he was Billy Houghton the second, and he carried a heavy hand. He was it. You didn't go to Billy. You had to Apples, and he was now his son still works for me. But anyway, you went to Apples, and he was the end all of anything. He coordinated everything. He set everything up. Billy did exactly what he tell him to do, as far as go here, go there. So Apple said, yes, I will stick with you. So I said, okay. And that's when I got that Chester Sayre, and I started cleaning those trailers up and bought, other tractor trailers to try to, so I would be ready if it finally happened. Teddy was still around soliciting horses, and he used to go to Apple's barn, Double C, and sit next to Apple's desk. Apple's desk was here, and he would spit in Apple's garbage can. You know, the chewing tobacco,
Yeah.
and it drove Apple's nuts. He couldn't stand it. It drove him absolutely nuts. But he didn't say anything to Teddy. And then Benny Steele was even pissed off more. Benny Steele was one of Apple's trainers,
Right.
because Apple's used to make Benny go take it outside and wash the garbage can out. So, he just about had it. So he went in there one day and he was spitting the garbage can. And Apple said to him, I have 6 horses in Saratoga to come back to Roosevelt. He said, when can you get them? Meantime, Apples was giving me more and more work. So Teddy said, you tell those boys, have them ready 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll have a truck go through that. I'm not doing that. I'm not disturbing that stable 1 o'clock in the morning. He says, I want them picked up at 1 o'clock. He goes, that truck going through there at 1 o'clock. If they're not ready, they ain't going. So you don't talk that way to Apples. I mean, the next thing he called me, I came down. He said, can you get a truck to Saratoga tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock? I said, I'm there 6 in the morning if you want. I sent that guy, Big Bill, that worked for me. Do you remember him, Eddie? Big black guy. His name was Big Bill.
Yeah.
He came with
Yeah.
Alex Nichols.
He's the one that made the lawn.
Yeah. He came with Alex Nichols. In fact, when I bought the business that day, I told you that Cal hit me up for the money. Big Bill wasn't even there. He didn't show up until Monday. He finally showed up on Monday with his hands out. He said, "My hands out. My hands are out to you." I had to go home and see his wife. I said, "Okay." So from then on, he worked for me 30 years. But I sent Big Bill up and got him. He came back. The truck pulled in with the 7 horses, got unloaded, and Teddy had a fit. He went into the office and he said to Apples, "You know, we've been doing all this work and everything else." And he said, "Does Mr. Houghton know what you're doing?" Now, you didn't say that to him. He said, Apple said, "Mr. Houghton doesn't have to know what I'm doing." He said, "I do what I think is right." He said, "And I didn't want those horses coming there." And he said, Apple said, "Hey, listen, Billy's right up the shed row. Why don't you go talk to him?" Right? And Teddy went out there, and I actually felt sorry for him. And Billy was coming down. And he always was in a hurry. And Apples and Teddy got in front of him and tried to tell him the story about Apples. He said, listen, Teddy, Apples makes the plans. I don't do it. If that's what he said, "Yes, but we went." And then Teddy blocked him. And Billy said to him, "Teddy, what do you want to fight me?" I knew it was all over for them then, right? He asked, Billy Houghton. Can you imagine Billy Houghton saying that to somebody? He would never do that, right? He said, "Teddy, what are you going to fight me?" So he said, "Oh no, not of course." He said, "No." He said, "Just get out of my way. I don't want anything." He went into the office and he told Apples, "Don't you ever put a horse on Brookledge's truck again."
Wow.
Boy, you know that was music to my ears, right? From that day on to the day Roosevelt closed, if Apples knew there was a horse coming from upstate with 5, 6 horses on, he could put one of his horses on. He'd send me up all alone to get the horse. He would not put another horse on that. And now that was a big blow to Brookledge right there.
Different, yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, Billy Popfinger was giving me all his work, and he had a lot of horses on. Now, Billy Pop was a great guy. I had to do a little struggling, to make ends meet, but he was loyal. I'm trying to make it as delicately as I can. He was very loyal to me, right? He never wavered. He never gave a horse to anybody. And all of those other guys. And it was I was starting to build up, and I had the good trucks and trailers, and all my drivers were ex-grooms. I got grooms from Houghton. I got grooms from a lot of people. And the grooms liked them, and they gave them a good ride. And they know, and they because they knew the horses, and they wanted to go with them, And by building up the equipment, I got more and more business. Right about then, Hawk and Walner comes into town. Anybody know who he is?
Yeah.
Continental Farms.
Yep.
His head groom or trainer was John Johnson.
There's a Swede, right?
Yeah, right. They come in. Hawk and Walner was the partyingest human being on the face of this earth. Billy Houghton said he puts me to shame, and that was something. Billy could go 2-3 days, partying. Well, Hawk and Walner, good-looking Swedish guy, always in a good mood, and they came into Roosevelt with I think about 8 horses. John Johnson came over to that little shack I had. He had a brand new Lincoln Continental town car, white with burgundy interior, 4-door. I was driving a Datsun pickup that I had a push start. He said to me, "Is it okay if I leave this here for a couple of weeks?" I said, "You can leave it here for a couple of months." I said, do you want me to start it up for you now?" "No, use it." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." Anyway, he got on the truck. We took the horses to Lexington. They had the meet in Lexington. Hawk and Walner made him the head trainer, John Johnson, and he went back to Sweden, and that was it. He came over occasionally now and then, but he ran this stable over there, right? John Johnson didn't come home for 2-3 months. Meantime, like I said, I had a car that started. I didn't have to push start it, and then from then on, John Johnson was the boss, and I had all those horses. That added up to about 110. So now I had Houghton and Continental. I only needed one more piece for the puzzle, and that was Stanley Dancer. He never gave me anything. Any little dribble drabs he had, if he had a horse who wanted to get to the airport and nobody else could do it, he would get me to do it. But I would, I'd hello to him, this and that. And then Brookledge made a fatal mistake. Stanley Dancer's main owner was Norman Woolworth. He provided all the horses and all the money. He had a farm in Kentucky, not Steve Stewart's farm. That's the Huntington farm, but his brother's farm. I don't know if that's Stoner Creek, maybe. Whatever it was, the brother ran that, and that's where Norman Woolworth had all his horses. And we had a couple of little panicky situations where Norman Woolworth got up. He didn't see any trucks. The trucks were supposed to be there to pick up 2 loads to go back to Stanley's farm. And he called Stanley. He said, that Woodbury hasn't showed up, Stanley. And Stanley called me up like a crazy wild man because Norman was upset. He said, Ronnie, where's your trucks? You haven't shown up. Norman Woolworth's going crazy. I said, Stanley, the truck's loaded in God 2 hours ago. I mean, we never saw him. He said, "Why don't you call the farm manager? He'll tell you." And he called back. All right. Norman got that mixed up. You're all right. We had a couple of those false alarms, but still survived it. Anyway, the worst thing that happened is Woolworth had a horse in New Egypt to race and return in the Meadowlands, and he got Brookledge to do it. Charged him $680 round trip. He called me up and he said, how much do you charge to go from my farm to Meadowlands Racing and Return? Now, I'm no dope, right? I said, oh, how's $250 sound? And he said, $250? Okay, thank you, hung up. He called up Brookledge and he told him, you'll never ship another horse for Norman Woolworth again. You charge him that $650. That's total rape job, and we're not gonna haul you again. Well, he was, they were upset, and that stage of the Grand Circuit was Detroit. He had 2 girls in the office, Beverly and her sister. They ran the whole thing. She said, Ronnie, this is Beverly. Stanley wants to talk to you. I said, hi, Stanley, what's up? He said, I want a truck down here this afternoon at 4 feed time to go to Detroit, 7 horses. And then from Detroit, I want you to take me the rest of the Grand Circuit. I said, okay. In the meantime, sent 2 of my best drivers, good truck up there. We got him to Detroit. When Teddy heard that, now Teddy now had left Roosevelt because he would go on the Grand Circuit. I mean, I'm only talking like this because I know you guys can appreciate this. Teddy went into the paddock where Stanley was getting dressed in the driver's lounge, and he said to him, Stanley, my boss wants you to call him. Now, do you think Stanley called him?
No.
He said, you tell your boss to go screw himself. He said, that's what he told Teddy. I'm not, like Teddy thought that all of a sudden Stanley was going to run to the phone. Stanley didn't call anybody. And that was it. So we took the horses to the next stop. And at the next stop, Billy Popfinger had about 6 head, and Stanley and Teddy tried to get him. He said, I got 1 horse here. He said, and he shot at me taking it to the next thing. He said, Teddy, I can't do this. He says, Ryan takes me all over. I can't do that. So Teddy actually goes to my agent at that time. His name was John Barker. Anybody remember him? He was Super Bowl's groom. And he was Super Bowl's groom. When Super Bowl retired, he came to work for me. He started off great until he got a little big gated. But anyway, he went to Teddy went to John Barker and he said, listen, go over to Barn 8. There's a horse there for Roland Ballou. Put him on your truck. I'm not bringing a truck all the way out here to Detroit for that. So at that one meet, Woodbury hauled every single standardbred in that racetrack and out. If you remember, Roland Ballou had that real good horse called Columbia George. It was the only horse that ever beat Most Happy Fellow.
Yep.
Most Happy Fellow beat him 5 times. Columbia George won once. That trainer's name was Roland Ballou.
What up?
Columbia
George had a boat tended.
Yeah. And
Didn't
from
he have
then
a-
on,
Didn't he have a boat tended?
not Columbia George, but the horse that he had there. This was past, Most Happy Fellow time. We had another horse
Yeah.
there, so now I had Houghton, I had Dancer, I had Continental Farms. I mean, I had a horse truck. I had a truck going everywhere for everybody. And why that was good, not
You
only
didn't
good
have
for me, was
Schulte?
and Brookledge wouldn't haul Schulte. Yes, I had Schulte. Anyway, okay. Everybody, it was anybody. But we had all those guys, and what was good about it is you always had, a horse with 2 or 3 for Houghton, 2 or 3 for Cottonelle, 2 or 3 for Dancer. So if Joe, you wanted to have a horse go there, right? I could put you on there for the 1 horse rate. You know what I mean? I didn't have to tell you, I don't have a horse going. It's going to cost you $500, right? Could get you somewhere for $125. Those days the rates were nothing. It was $48 to Monticello per horse.
Unbelievable.
$48 per head.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the 9 horse rate. You know what I
That
mean?
doesn't pay the toll now.
Yeah, we don't pay the toll. So if you had a horse to go, I could put you on. If Eddie, you had a horse to go, I could put you on. And I wasn't killing myself to make you pay me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't beating down your barn. Hey Joe, could you take care of this bill? Because it didn't matter to me if you went or not. Right? That was just gravy for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was gravy for me. And if I could help somebody out, I would. Because at that time, like I was telling Larry, the things now are completely different than they were then. When you were at Roosevelt Raceway, you were encompassed in that area. You knew all those trainers, all those grooms. Every day you saw them at the training track. You saw them at the track kitchen. You saw them up at the paddock. You saw them racing. You saw them at the barn area. They don't have that now because these big tracks don't have barn areas.
No,
right?
It was really a family back then.
It was a family man. You go to Gateway Farm, this guy is over here. If you don't go there, you have no business there. But you always met them there. You always saw them, and you knew every single person. Like I said, my trailer was right next to Kelly's harness shop. Well, Kelly had a repair trailer, and mine was right there. And every trainer come off that track had to go right by my office. I would go and sit at the training track, talk to those guys. I wouldn't go. You got anything to ship? I wouldn't do that. Just let
No.
themselves see me. You know what I mean? And because of that, it was a one big happy family. I mean, I mentioned Nancy Knockman. She hated me, but shipped with me. Hated me. She hated me and she hated my drivers. Except there was one driver she didn't hate, Roy Rollins.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers him. She loved Roy Rollins. Right. But every single one of them. Like I said, I don't want to bore you, but I have this page over here that's there wasn't anybody that came into Roosevelt Raceway. Very rarely did they go out with somebody else, but especially when you had Houghton, the guys from the Midwest, all these other people. Lee Broglio was a personal friend of mine. He was one of the people in the beginning that helped me out. Him and his father owned a nightclub called the Swan Club.
Uh-huh.
He was in that business. He was he played some instrument. It was, I forget what instrument, and he had a farm up in Brookville. And later on in life, he married a woman from Ireland. Iseult was her name. They had a kid. He had prostate cancer. The doctor told him when he was 67 years old, he could last about 5 years. He said to me that he laid in bed. I think I told Larry this. He laid in bed and he said, "There's no way that's getting me. No way. I'm not going to succumb to that. I'm very sorry." And he said that he believed that the positive hormones that his body produced at that time, plus with medicine and everything else, he lived till he was 88. He really, and he was a gentleman. This guy was a gentleman in every way. He used to come to my house and play tennis. I used to go to his house and play tennis. But like I said, all these people. The point I'm trying to make is we all became friends there. I had a Christmas party in one of my shops. I had every person in the whole racetrack there. It was like it was unbelievable. That office trailer that I had, it was there. I had the big sign in the front said Woodbury Horse Transportation.
Yeah.
You know where I got that trailer, Joe? Hervé Filion bought that trailer and had the racetrack put it there. He bought a 6-horse van and he hired this big fat guy. His name was Joe, too, right? And Hervé said, "No offense, but whatever Joe can take my horses around, I got to do it, because I use my own truck. I can go here, there, everything else, right?"
Right.
I said, okay. Previous to that, I would come home from race and return from Yonkers. One Saturday night, come home from race and return to Yonkers at 12 o'clock at night. Hervé pulled up alongside the truck and he said to me, "Can you go to Liberty Bell and bring back 6 horses?" I said, "When?" He says, "Right now." He put a groom in the truck. I didn't even know what Liberty Bell was. Didn't have any cell phone, didn't have GPS. The groom showed me how to get there. We got there, loaded the equipment, but the six, I think I got back to Roosevelt 7 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, so we got this 6-horse van for Joe to drive. So Hervé, on the very first trip, Hervé sends him up to Canada to get 3 horses. On the way back, the guy runs the truck hot, blows the motor, and just barely gets it into Roosevelt Raceway. I don't know, Joe, you remember where I used to have my trucks all lined up across from Kelly?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I came in one morning, I just saw this thing nosed in. I said to my mechanics, what's this thing doing here? He goes, I don't even know who it is, right? Well, Hervé couldn't find the driver for a week. Couldn't find Joe for a week. You know where he was? In that trailer sleeping. He never got out. He got up at night, went, got something to eat, came back. When Hervé found that out, he said, you want a nice horse? You want a nice office trailer? I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to have it, because I still had my little shack, right?
Right.
I said, yeah. It had a bathroom, the racetrack hooked up. He said, but you got to buy that truck, too.
Oh.
I had to buy the 6-horse van. I said, it's got a blown motor. He said, if you want that trailer, you got to buy that off me. He gave me a good price. I put a new motor, and I sold it to Frank Antonacci. You know, they're from the Connecticut. That the Antonacci, the older Frank.
Lindy's farm.
Lindy's farm. Yeah, I put a brand new motor in it, and I was going to keep it because the truck was good. But he wanted it so badly, I just went and sold it to him. But that's how I ended up with that trailer from Hervé, and that was the beginning and the end of his shipping career.
Huh.
But he was some character. He came into Roosevelt with 27 head of horses, and immediately gave him. I think was Rene Poland his second trainer at that time.
I tell you, Roosevelt Raceway.
Mike LaValle.
Mike LaValle. Okay. Yeah.
Mike LaValle.
Not Regine Dagnot.
Norman Duplass.
Oh, it was okay, but he gave me, like I said, Hervé. He gave me Hervé was not only a good driver. Hervé was a hell of a trainer. I'm sure you all know that, right?
Oh yeah, great horseman.
Yeah. In 1 year in Pompano, a friend of mine, Jimmy Dean, had an open mare. The name was Tanya's Treasure, right? And she, the open there went for 10,000. And she was second, third, nice mare and everything. And he had a little problem with his wife, and he said to me, "What's the shot of me coming back to New York with you?" I had a big house in Long Island. I said, "Sure, come stay with him." He said, and put the horse in Louis' barn, and put him in the open, filly mare open. I didn't think she'd do any good because come from Pompano, you're not going to go there and win. Anyway, so we put him in Louis' barn. And Louis, Jimmy this was like her pet, and his pet. So he raced him. I think the first week he finished 4th, and Hervé drove him. Second week he finished 3rd. Anyway, so it was in the paddock. I was in the paddock with Jimmy, and Hervé came in, and he says, listen, take all this crap off this horse, right? Take that blind bridle off, open those hobbles up. Take the 2 burr head poles. Just leave the one on the right side or the left, whatever. He said, open those hobbles up 2 inches and open them up in the front. Right. The horse went in 56 flat, won the open. Yeah. $20,000. Jimmy thought he died and went to heaven. That's what That's the kind of guy that Hervé was. That he knew how to do those kind of things.
Yeah,
Hervé knew how to do a lot of things, but that was one of the things he knew how to do.
Hervé was a good horseman.
Yeah, he was a good horseman. He just and he was a good person. I who I failed to mention here, Jimmy Cruz. I'm sure you guys know Jimmy Cruz, right?
He had the barn right by the training track at Roosevelt.
Yeah, right next to Louis. When Roosevelt closed, his trunks were embedded in the ground. You had to get them up with a pry bar. Larry, here's a story you're gonna love. Going to the races, I had this broken down truck that you had to put the equipment in the peak and then shut the peak door before you put the horses on. Because once you put the horses on, it flexed the peak, so the doors wouldn't open. Right? That's what a piece of shit it was. Anyway, I'm pulling away from the. I used to drive. Used to pull away from the right next to the manure pit was a loading ramp. I was pulling away. Here comes Jimmy. Hey, partner. Paul, you got my horse on there? I said,
Partner.
no,
Yep,
Jimmy.
that's what we call it.
I don't have your horse on here, Jimmy. Oh, these boys gonna drive me crazy. He said, I got horse racing tonight. I said, I gotta get to Roosevelt. Yonkers, can you put my horse on there? I said, can you put the harness bag like in the middle of between the horses? I said, I can't open the peak. Yeah, okay. So he said, backed up, put him on, right? He's, I see you at Yonkers. I said, okay. So we get there, now I had $20 to my name. I used that on a Monday. I used to, at Yonkers, you go up that little thing they used to sell candy bars with a soda.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
went up to the driver's lounge, right?
of course.
I used to get that. That was my meal. I had $20 ration to myself. So I go up there and I'm in the paddock with him and bring the horse in. And he said, might not hurt to bet a little bit on him. I said, really? I said, what's the name of this horse? Helen's Adonis. You know that horse, Larry,
Oh, I
right?
know. Yeah,
Helen's
Davy Handel owned them.
Helen's Adonis.
Yeah,
I said,
he named that horse after his wife. Davy Handel's wife was Helen.
I said, really? He says, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to bet a little bit about him. He's pretty good. I said, okay. So I go to the thing. I not only buy my soda, my candy bar, but I get the program. I go up in the lounge. I open it up and I see Ken McNutt driving him. Ken McNutt. Right?
Yeah.
Now, guess how much the horse was? 50 to 1. 50 to 1. I said, oh my God. Okay. So I'm not wasting a dime on this horse, right? I was just sitting there and the race takes off and Ken McNutt gets away last. Comes the back, comes around the paddock turn the first time. Ken McNutt is not only last, he's like 3 lengths behind the whole crew, right? They come to the half and they start doubling up. And I'm thinking, oh my God, thank God I didn't waste my meal money on this, right? They go into the backstretch and it says, Helen's Adonis moving up on the outside. I just sat up in my seat, just looking, what? Well, when they came around the paddock turn, Ken McNutt was 4 wide and winging it. I mean, he was flying. 1 by 3, paid $102.50.
Oh boy.
I went down the paddock. Did pretty good. Did pretty good, didn't you, partner? Sure hope you put a little something on him, didn't you? I said, yeah, Jimmy, I did. Thank you. I said, I can't tell you. I drove that truck home like this, just staring, staring at the road, going, if I bet $20 on this horse, right? $102.50. Ken McNutt. You just seen him coming around that last turn, 4 wide, just. I guess he knew something was going to happen, right?
He was a sharp guy.
Jimmy Cruz, yeah. He was
Great with a trotter.
and he was a return mail payer too, which in my book, was good. He said to me one Sunday, he said, you ever get going to Vernon once in a while? I said, of course I do, Jimmy. He said, I got a trotter I want to race up there. He says, you think you could take me up to Vernon? I said, yeah. I said, but I know you like to go with other people. When is this so I can get somebody to go with you? You don't want to have to pay for the whole truck, right? Going to Vernon, 6 hours up, 6 hours back, at those days, it would probably be a $500 return trip, which today is nothing, right?
Right.
They charge you $500 to go to Meadowlands. So he said, well, I don't think it's going to matter much, but I just really need to go when I want to go. I said, okay, when do you want to go? He said, how about picking me up Sunday morning, 5 o'clock? I said, this Sunday? He said, yes. So I told my wife, I'm not going to be home. I picked him up. He put the groom in the back of the truck, a 6-horse van, put him in the back. He sat in the front with me. The name of the horse was Earl's Lad.
Mm-hmm.
Get to Vernon. They had some kind of trotting race. They had some kind of trotting race there, right? I got the program. I think he finished 5th, 6th, 4th, the last 5 races at Roosevelt. Anyway, he said to me, wouldn't hurt to put a little on him. Now, you don't think I was gonna fall for that twice, do you? I did. The horse paid $56 with him driving. He said, I want you to have the truck right by the paddock. He says, he don't cool out much. He said, he's going to sponge him down. And he said, we got to get going. Anyway, the groom sponged him down. We put him on chest. When we were pulling off the grounds, the loudspeaker said, "Jimmy Cruz to the judge's office. Jimmy Cruz to the judge's office." I just looked at him. He just went, "What are you going to do?" You know what I mean? But he did what he had to do.
Was that California mud that he used really from California or the Hudson River?
I don't know. I don't know. He's you know he demanded respect. No one ever got familiar with him. You know what I mean? No one ever got. He didn't get familiar with. He's a gentleman. You know, he didn't talk much. He had that little southern drawl and
Me, I'm the only one on.
that what?
Everybody seemed to disappear.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're all right.
Okay. Yeah, his
Where
son
are
had
you
a very.
guys?
Can you hear me, Joe?
Yeah, I hear you.
His son had a very good trotter.
You here?
I think you beat him, Joe.
Magician, yeah.
Magician, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we showed that race last week.
Yeah, Earl, yeah. That horse made a lot of money, but
Yeah.
your horse beat him that time, right?
Yeah. Finished
Yeah.
second the next week.
Yeah, but those are just those were just some of the things we
How
had. But
come
he
all-
was.
What's the matter, Eddie? You having a problem?
Guess you got
Yeah, Eddie.
sunglasses on.
Eddie's frozen over there.
No, you all. I'm the only guy that was. I was the only. No,
I'm
I
on.
ain't.
I've been okay.
I'm not frozen.
Ron, when did you
Once in
get
a
out of the
while,
shipping
whole
business?
screen blocks out. You three go away. I'm the only
That
one on.
what, Larry?
When did you get out of the
I
shipping
didn't
business?
notice anything.
1990.
What made you get out?
Roosevelt closed, right? Barry Goldstein let me go in the back. In the back where Roosevelt Raceway had all their equipment, right? I put the trailers back there, and it was torture because every day someone came and looked at the track. Roosevelt was closed. Roosevelt closed in 1988, maybe 91. They came, and then I was still back there. I was still operating out of there, right? Shipping the horses out of Florida and the Meadowlands. And with the 5 tractor trailers that I had, I hooked up with a guy in Florida to start shipping freight out of Florida. Produce going to Hunts Point Market. And I used a lot of my drivers wouldn't go with the people I sold it to. I kept 5 of the best trucks and the 5 box trailers. And I all during that time, at Roosevelt, I used to bring hay and straw into the trainers too. And I had a car repair business there down at the end. It was very convenient for the trainers because if you had a car, your wife had to drop you off at the dealer, bring you to Roosevelt. She had to pick you up at Roosevelt, take you back to the dealer. With me, all you did was just drive the car to the back. My mechanics, when the truck's on the road, I had 5 mechanics there. We fixed the car for whatever was wrong. Whatever ad you saw in the papers, I put those tires on for that price. I never charged. Never tried to make a dime in car repair. Just all I wanted was my mechanics to stay busy. So if you saw an ad in the Sunday papers, oh, can you match this? I said, yeah. And I wouldn't even charge you the $5 for balancing. I wouldn't charge you the $4 to get rid of the tires, anything. And the trainers were very happy. I did tune-ups for them I literally, after my labor, I didn't make any money on the repair because I wanted to keep the drivers busy, and the guys liked it. And I started really doing good. I started repairing 2-horse trailers for people too, believe it or not. Anyway, there was some guy at the racetrack. He brought his trailer in. It was horrible. It was wheels were falling off, and it had the floor out. And I said, I just can't do anything with it. And he got a little upset that I wouldn't help him. I said, I can't deal with that. I said, I'm very sorry. So he goes and he complains to the management. At that time, it was Bill Hopkins. And he tells Bill Hopkins that. So Bill Hopkins tells Caesar Gennari. Anybody remember him?
Yeah, he was the track maintenance guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we liked. In the meantime, like I said, I had this the shop in the back, which a whole tractor trailer could go in, like a whole unit, a tractor. I had a bunkhouse. I had a coffee room. I had
No.
a room for the oil and the oil, anything. And everybody from the track would go in there. Caesar Jerry go in there. We had Newsday on the table. You have coffee, read there. So we were, like I said, it was one big happy family. He said, I hate to tell you this. He says, Bill Hopkins wants you to take a step back. I said, what do you mean? He said, he said, we built you the trailer and I had lights every 4 feet, receptacles every 4 feet. He said, you build the track, damn near build you the thing and blah, blah, blah. But he said, you're starting to spread yourself a little thin here, shipping the horses and you got a horse, you got this repair and the car repair and you're bringing in hay and straw. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, how do you want me to cut back? He said, he says, let me talk to him. I'll get back to you tomorrow and I'll let you know. He comes in the next day with a car, a very nice car, with the right side with a big crease in it. And he said, what?
Everything went off. Like a bite.
So Caesar comes in with this car with a big crease in the side. And he said,
The fuck out of here.
what's the matter? Eddie, you can't hear it? We can wait.
Eddie.
Eddie's frozen. He's frozen. He'll come back on. Go ahead, Ron.
So Caesar brings his car in with a big cut in the side, right? He said, listen, he said, Bill Hopkins took his wife's car this morning. He wasn't supposed to. He got in an accident on Ellison Avenue. Is there any way you can bring it to a repair shop and get it fixed by 4 o'clock this afternoon? I said, yeah. So right down the street, there was the great body shop called F&W. We got it over there at 8:30 in the morning. 4:30 picked it up. You couldn't even notice it, right? Brought it. Caesar picked it up. Brought it to Bill Hopkins. The next day, Caesar came back and he said, Bill Hopkins says, business as usual. That was the end of that, right? And of course, I didn't give him a bill.
I guess not. Yeah.
Of course, I didn't give him a bill. But that was, we, like I said, I guess we did spread ourselves thin. But, you said, any guy that had any favor with any, I used to change tires on Brookledge trailers. Teddy would come in, he says, a guy coming in with a flat, you believe that his drivers would not jack the truck up and put the spare on. My trucks had 3 trailer spares and 2 tractor spares. They all had a jack, a lug wrench, and everything. I mean, my truck's got a flat. You pulled over, my drivers got under them, jacked them up. Brookledge drivers would not do it. They'd call tire service. He said to me, I know this is out of order, and just tell me what the bill is, and I'll pay you. I brought it right over in 2 seconds with all the equipment we had. The flat fixed and the other one put back. I said, Teddy, you don't have to pay me anything for that. And, that was just kind of the rapport we had. Unfortunately, later on, they found Teddy in a ditch in Ohio somewhere. Must have fell asleep. He didn't drink. Didn't do drugs, just that chewing tobacco. They found him in a Jeep, in his pickup upside down. Guess he either heart attack. He was like 350 pounds.
Yeah, he was a big guy.
He ate 4 huge meals a day. He invited us over to his house for veal cutlet parmesan. Right?
Yeah.
I had all I could do to eat 2 of them like this. He ate 6 of them.
Oh my gosh.
And his wife was bigger than him.
Wow.
I mean, the way they ate, they would take a loaf of Wonder Bread.
The
kind of Wonder Bread you have in a diner, cut it down the middle, split it, put it on the table, and put 2 big, things of dressing. But a good guy, I can't say enough about him. And he was a good guy, and he really helped me. But like I said, I was, really getting, itching my way in there those years, and I was proud to have good trucks with all these trainers that trusted me. I wanted to put out the best equipment that I possibly could, and at one point in time, I wish I had it in Transport Topics. It said, Woodbury Transportation's trucks look as good from 3 feet away as they do from 30 feet away. So that was a big,
Right.
a big compliment, you know. And we went on for a long time like that.
Ron, let
You
me
know,
ask you a question. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how I came into the subject, but there was a time, I think it was in the 70s. It was when Fred Bradbury had that horse Diane,
Diane, yes,
and a horse called a pacer called, I believe the pacer's name was Going Through.
okay,
And he asked me to Going Through had a big stake race, I think at Liberty, I think it was Liberty Bell. And he asked me to go down and drive the horse. And I said, okay. Well, we shipped the horse down there about 5 days, or maybe the day that when they knew the horse was going to get in, they shipped the horse down, and the horse went in a big, I guess it was one of them 9 horse carriers,
right,
and it went off the road, and all the horses went off the road down an embankment, and all the horses died except for Going Through. They found him still alive, but hanging from the chains,
cross ties,
the cross ties, yeah. And naturally, they got him out. They brought him to the track. The bottom line was he wind up. They left it up to me whether he was all cut up and everything, but he wind up racing, and I think he won the race. I'm not sure, but I think it was either won or finished second. And so my question to you is, do you remember that any truck, horse van going off and all the horses died? It was on either the Pennsylvania Turnpike or the Turnpike going to Liberty Bell. You don't remember that? It was
yeah,
it was
yes,
the years,
I remember.
it was the years when Diane was racing.
Yeah,
So I don't remember, but that was the years. And
yeah,
the and
I remember. The only thing I'd want to say about that is it wasn't me. So, but yes, that did happen.
yeah,
Yeah. You know, that horse Diane was a trotter, right?
right,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes,
And that raced with um, a horse called Fresh Yankee.
Hmm.
Remember that? Okay,
yes,
that was Joe O'Brien, right?
yes.
Okay. And the horse that almost always finished third was a mare called Ulysses Mab. That was Lee Broglio's horse. Always finished third.
Do you know that I know Lee Broglio for probably 15 to 20 years, and I had dinner with him many times. He never had anything but a smile on his face.
Great, the nicest guy in the world. Well, this
Yeah.
Ulysses Mab always finished third. One day he was at Brandywine racing. The horse won when they turned him for the winner's circle. He got his picture taken and ran in through the crowd. Ran right through a turnstile and into the crowd somehow, some way, and got the shaft stuck through his chest here and out his back. Broke off the bike and was running around the parking lot banging cars with it. They did get a hold of the horse and they took it to University of Pennsylvania and they saved it. They saved the horse. Now I don't remember what period of time this was, but they did save it. And Lee had the horse back to his barn in Brookville, and he was back lightly jogging her. And one night he called me, and he said, right at my house, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. He said, Ryan, listen to me, it's taking a turn for the worse. I got to get her to the University of Pennsylvania. Can you please send a truck over here right away? I said, of course, Lee. I did it myself. I went over there with a 6-horse van, and he had a guy that worked for him. I'm racking my brain because I have a good memory who this guy was. It was not a guy in about his 40s, but he worked with him. He rode in the truck with him, brought the
Cliff
back
Carr?
to the who
Cliff Carr. Cliff Carr.
is that? Who it was?
I think so. Black guy?
No, white guy.
White
No,
guy.
he's a white guy. Yeah.
Name
So
is-
anyway, I picked him up, and well, previous to this was I stopped over there one day, and he calls me in to have a drink, a Christmas drink. Me and Lee Broglio, and this Jane Mangrum was with me, the guy that worked for Insco, and he comes in, and his wife was there. She was a female wrestler, not the kind you got today. I mean, a wrestler-looking wrestler, right? And let's have a Christmas drink. She put 3 glasses on the table, look like the glasses you get in a motel, like on the sink, and open a bottle of scotch and just pour 3 drinks. I mean, like just like that. That was her form of hospitality. Anyway, long story short, he rides on the truck with me to University of Pennsylvania, and they left the horse there. The next day or a week later, it doesn't matter. I'm playing tennis with Lee Broglio. While we're playing, she comes out of the house where her and this guy lives, walks over to the side of the tennis court with her hands on his shoulder. She said, "When am I going to get paid for supplying that groom on your truck going down to the University of Pennsylvania?" Lee just stopped. He was like stunned. I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, yeah. My husband rode on that truck down to the University of Pennsylvania as a groom, and you never paid him. I think he should get at least a day's pay for that." I said, "Listen, that's not my horse. I said, "I'm just the driver." I said, "It's Mr. Broglio's horse, right? And it's your husband. He works for Lee Broglio. I think that's a matter for the 2 of them. But I certainly don't owe you the money, right?" Oh, she went crazy, ran off. About 3 weeks later, we were playing tennis again. We used to play like once a week. This guy comes walking, the guy, not her, comes walking over to the edge of the tennis court, and he's totally a wreck. "Lee, you're not going to believe this. Come quick. Come quick. You're not going to believe this." Lee said, "What's the matter?" "You're not going to believe this." He said, "What's the matter?" We thought somebody died, right? Went in the house. The house is completely bare. There was no clothes, no furniture, no dishes, no nothing. He said, "Lee, she left me. She left me." Lee just turned with a little smile and said to him, "How
You
lucky
lucky
can
guy.
one guy get?"
Yeah, you lucky guy.
That's what he says. "How lucky can one guy get?" He goes, "Oh, God." Man, those are just some of the stories. She wanted me to pay for having that, for riding down on the truck. And Lee was mortified. He said he was like, you know, he
Lee
wanted to get
Broglio
rid
had
of her.
big time, didn't he?
Yeah. I brought, I shipped Big Towner to Monticello for the OTB Classic,
Right.
and I shipped Oil Burner for Benny Webster.
Oil burner, yeah. Oil burner won, right?
Yeah, Oil Burner won. They both won.
Yeah.
That was $100,000 race, the Monticello
Right.
OTB Classic. Yeah, there was a lot of those. He was so good to me. Like I said, imagine. So so now we're past my baby stages, and like I said, I did have good equipment and was doing all these things for everybody. And the racetrack used to, believe it or not, George Morton Levy, he used to put people onto me. He used to when my horses raced, I didn't have to wait for them to send me a check. On Monday, I would go up to his office. "Mr. Levy wants to see you. How you doing?" "All right, boy, take it easy. Are you doing good?" And go ahead, and they would hand me it was a $20,000 race. They give me a check for $9,000.
Wow.
They took out the driver and the trainer. So,
Right.
but it was, like I said, it was good. And, a lot of times, you think, well, I left a lot of money on the table, but a lot of that money on the table was for reasons that I told you, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I said, guy had 1 or 2 horses and he had to get from here to there and he didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I was going anyway, just put them on.
Yeah.
Just put them on. There was no problem. But in all due respect, Brookledge wouldn't do that.
No.
No matter,
Not too many people would do that.
no matter what. There was no ands, ifs, or buts.
Right.
If you didn't pay Brookledge, I got a lot of people from Brookledge because they didn't pay them. You know what I mean? Then they,
Yeah.
In the horse business, 3-month pay is good pay. You get paid in 3 months, that's good. You know that?
That's
now I work
Guys,
for this Colonial Wife.
I got to go to the men's room. I'll be right back.
Okay, go ahead.
When we lost Eddie's something wrong with his computer or something. He froze and then they just lost the signal.
Yeah.
That's another thing I forgot to tell you, that when you do these podcasts, you got to make sure that the speed on your internet is above like 50 or 60. Mine is up to 800 because I'm right next to the router.
Yeah.
But Eddie and Anthony, when he comes on, they have very low internet speed, and what happens is they freeze up every once in a while, and this is what happens. The only problem with Joe is that he won't use the stand for his phone. He
Yeah.
just keeps it on his lap.
Yeah.
I sure admire.
I think mine is pretty high, Larry. I just was looking at it the other day.
Yours is good.
I hope
yours
so.
is perfect.
Yeah, I hope it is.
That's some wall you have behind you there.
Yeah, we had the whole place done. There was a wall here, and we had the whole wall taken down. I had to put a column in, and yeah, and this is a it's a it's a it's a built-in china closet. You know,
Really?
it has you know, the quartz top, and I don't know if you can see it.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. We just had that done and opened the place up. Had that done last year, and
What
then
do
we
you go
really
to Florida? You go to Florida every winter?
yeah. I used to go in January, but my son goes skiing, and this year I can't go to the 1st of February. I usually go for January 17th. Yeah, and yeah, I met I told my wife that Joe was going to be on, and she said to say hello to you, Joe, and that hope that
Hey,
we see you
say
in
hello.
Florida. and
Yeah,
and
had
and
a
and
nice night that night.
and hopefully that get your father up for dinner
Yeah, hopefully.
when he's doing if he's doing better.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just got was I might go there every day, but
yeah,
he's doing okay. He's making progress now.
yeah, yeah.
But
That's good. You know,
yeah,
but you know, I know Larry went to Florida, and when my business progressed and got a little bit bigger, I had to have two salesmen in South Florida for the whole winter. I had
mhm.
John Barker, and I had this guy Gary Gallo. His father, Ralph Gallo, actually worked for me too. He was my agent at Belmont, and I had started a good clientele at Belmont, and Ralph died, and
Okay.
I never continue with that. But Gary was there, and I used to pay a fortune to put these guys up. You know, put them up and then travel to there to go to Ben White in Orlando and other racetracks besides Pompano. And right outside of right on Racetrack Road, there was two little houses right before you went into the stable gate of the training side of Pompano Park. Two little houses, nice
Hmm.
little neat houses. In the back, they had a little small backyard with a picnic table, and I looked in there, and they looked very neat and everything. So I went to the management and I asked them if I could rent them. And they said, you have to go see John Cashman. He was the wherefore there. You know, John Cashman had a nice guy, but personality
Hmm.
like a ferret. You know, but he but a nice guy. And in the meantime, every single time I heard an announcement, anybody going to the Meadowlands, please come to the race office. They wanted to get papers up there, right? So
Papers, yeah, all the time.
yeah, the papers. So every week I had a shuttle from usually left on a Thursday from Pompano going back to the Meadowlands or Roosevelt or Yonkers. So I would run over there, or I'd make my guys if I wasn't there. Whatever they had, they would give me the race papers. I would take them and I would deliver them. So I did that week after week after week, right? One day when they called me, I went in to get them, and the race secretary, I forget what his name back then. You know, I have a good memory, but I forget what that race secretary's name is.
Larry Mala,
No, Larry Matt was at Yonkers, at
Ed
Roosevelt.
Parker, Ed Parker.
Uh, young, big young guy, kind of an A personality guy, not bad. But anyway, he said to Cashman, he goes, "This is the guy that takes the papers to Meadowlands for us every week. Woodbury Transportation. Cashman never said a word. Just went, okay. And, anyway, a week later, drive by those two houses. I'm saying I was paying a fortune for these guys with motels and everything.
All right.
So I went up to the race office and I said, how do I find out about those? Oh no, you can't rent those houses have been vacant for a while. We don't rent them out. I said, okay. So who's in charge of them? He said John Cashman. But you know, yeah. Anyway, I said to him, I said, John, I'd like to ask you, is there any way I could rent one of those two houses for my salesman? They service Pompano Park. I said, we'll take excellent care. I'll be happy to pay you whatever rent you want. I'll give you a deposit. He said, just go move in there and we'll talk about it. I said, okay. We got the key, went there. The kitchen was spotless. Imagine this is like a shack, you know what I mean? There was to the left, there was a nice living room, big, full living room where they had desk where my guys could put their books, 2 bedrooms, and a clean bathroom with a shower.
All right.
First year, at the end of the year, I said, John, what do I owe you? He goes, oh, we'll talk about it. This went on for years.
Really?
For years. He never charged me rent for it. And the race secretary said, somebody asked him about the other house. He said he wouldn't even talk about it. Well, that time, when I get to the horses, I will tell you, I had a horse called Racy Royce, and I brought him to Florida. I raced him in the Open, and he was, he would go in 51 at the Meadowlands, and Pompano would go in 52. And after a while, there was no more Open, right? So it was like 6 horses, 5 horses, and then it didn't fill. So after 3 weeks of not racing, I went into the race office and I asked for the papers. I said, I'm going to send them back to New York. And the race secretary said, well, I'm very sorry. There's nothing to do. And John Cashman said, now he knew me, right? From the house. He said, what's the problem? I said, I don't want to take the horse, John. I said, but I can't get him raced. He said to the race secretary, he says, you open that open pace. And he said, and do whatever you got to do, but I want that open pace to go on every single week from now on, no matter what.
Wow.
So I said, thank you, John. I really appreciate it. He says, okay. He says, just leave the papers here. I said, all right, no problem. So he did me a favor. The race secretary got creative. He put in, he put in a 70 claimer, 80 claimer. Nobody had $80,000, 100 claimer, this and that. And you only had 5, so it didn't matter where you were. You didn't get worse than the
Right.
5 hole, And I used to win every single week with him, with Ronnie Waples driving. And one week, and he doesn't talk much either, right? He got off the horse. Dick McCumber was the trainer. And Dick was a friend of mine. He was the guy that first helped me too. And, everybody said when I gave him horses in Florida, oh my God, because Dick had a reputation for training the crap out of them, right? Dick McCumber would train a horse in 55 flat in the Meadowlands to a jog cart. Yeah. I had a little horse, cool flying fella. A friend of mine said, your trainer just trained that horse in 55 flat to a jog cart.
That's crazy. I don't care what anybody says.
Right? So anyway, but he couldn't do anything with Racy Royce because he had 2 bow tenders and a suspensory. So he couldn't train. All he had to do was jog him 5 miles a day and stand him in water, right? So one day, Ron Waples, one Saturday night, he raced him. The horse went in 51-4, last quarter 27 flat. They didn't go in 26 those days. So he got off and got a picture taken. And he said to him, I said, so he was pretty good tonight, wasn't he, Ron? He says, yeah, he was pretty good. Now give him a week off. Just like that. He says, give him a week off. Don't race him back next week. But and we didn't. But I left them there right until they used to close April 6th. And I didn't, and I left them there right into then.
Cadiz tried to buy Pompano Park too, as well as Roosevelt
did?
Raceway.
I wish he would have bought one of them.
He wanted Roosevelt. He wanted Pompano Park too, but Van Lennep had his son. What the hell was his kid's name? Run the place.
Yeah.
He was a big fat kid. I forgot his name. Anyway, he wouldn't. He just said he wasn't interested. But But so anyway, we stopped trying to buy Pompano. Larry did, and then he got screwed out of buying Roosevelt Raceway. So
I know you saw that's that
That
was
was a big
that's one of
scam,
the
man.
biggest, one of the
Real
biggest,
estate scams ever. Those
one of
guys
the
put up
biggest.
$1,000 each. $1,000 each bought them that place.
One of the
$1,000
one
each.
one of the biggest scams ever. Barry Goldstein and his partner, they bought that with bonds, you know.
Yeah, they
They
had to
you
put
know that
$1,000 cash each.
you,
That's it.
and they came out with $10,000 in credit in bonds to pay for it.
Yeah,
It was unbelievable. They got it for free. All they had to do was save the track 2 more years, and you wouldn't have been able to take it down because it was 48 years old.
right. It'd been
You know,
a lot more.
and to tell you the truth, Mario Como didn't do anything to help that either.
No,
He wasn't into
he,
horseback.
he was
He could,
involved in it from the beginning.
yeah, he could have done something to save that, but he didn't do that. And that was like, you know, that place is like 8 minutes from my house. You know what I mean? You know something though, Larry and Joe, when I first started racing horses in 1986, I used to have my father-in-law meet me right across from the finish line out on the macadam. My wife makes fun of me. I call it macadam, the pavement, right? And
Mm.
you would go there. You'd come up in the owner's park, come up the elevator. You'd have to work your way through the crowd to find him.
Yeah,
To find him. At the end, we could come up out of the elevator and spot him without even the minute just stepped out of the thing. That was the difference in the attendance.
yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was the difference in the attendance. So it was
I got pictures, man. You can't see the sidewalk. You can't see
yeah.
the blacktop.
You can't Joe. They were shoulder to
I
shoulder.
know,
Joe,
and the grandstand too, full
yeah,
packed.
if you were across from the finish line, and when it was popular, you couldn't walk to the finish line. You'd have to go.
No.
Excuse me. You know,
Yeah,
it was hard. It was on Mondays they had 30,000 people.
yeah,
That's when all the restaurants were closed in Long Island. They were not now, and the waiters and everybody would go there on
yeah,
Monday. OTB killed that. You know, Barry Goldstein told me that if back in the '80s, if there was no OTB, the open pace would go for $60,000 back then. That they didn't have to take the piece out to give them. That's what he said.
Hmm.
But that to me was a shame, and
another big scam.
yeah, and it was a shame because it was great, that big bar they had there, and after the races we used to go to Gamwas across the
Yeah,
street.
yeah,
Uh, you know that, or Giulio Cesare was right across the street.
right.
Remember that? Remember that,
Yeah.
Larry?
I remember Gang War. That's all. That's the only
Yeah.
place I went to.
Yeah,
Harry used to own Game One.
yeah, Harry.
Yep.
Harry, yeah, yeah, Harry. They used to serve something they call war hip steak. I guess it was today's Colby type steak. You know what I mean? It was delicious.
You
It was
don't know what it
expensive.
might have been. You
Yeah,
don't know what it is.
yeah. People used to go there, and you know that's basically what happened. You know the Meadowlands didn't open until September 1st, 1976.
Right. I was there. We had to
19.
park on the turnpike to get in there.
You did.
We parked on the side of the turnpike.
Well, one Saturday in
The
late.
exit.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just saying you couldn't get in. It was closed. There was
Yeah.
no parking. Everybody was parking on the exits on the grass.
One Saturday in late August, I would say about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang, and it was a guy with a very deep voice. And he said, "Oh, yeah, listen, is this Ron from Woodbury?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "This is Joe DeFrank. I'm the race secretary from the new Meadowlands Racetrack that's opening up next month in the Meadowlands at New Jersey." I said, "Yes." He said, "What can I do for you?" He says, "I need you to go down to the Houghton Barn and pick up a horse, a groom, all the equipment, and take it to this North Bergen shopping center." I said, "What?" He said, "It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday." He said, "Yes." He says, "Apples Thomas will meet you there." Now, the minute he said that, I couldn't say no, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I wasn't going to say no anyway. So I wasn't going to say no. I said, okay. I said, what do I do? He says, Apples has the address. He said, all you got to do is drive the truck there. The groom will hook the horse up to his equipment, and Apples will have his outfit on and everything, and parade him around the parking lot a couple of times for publicity, for when the the track is opening up September 1st. I said, oh, meantime, I'm saying to myself, I'm not going to get home to 8 o'clock at night now, right? I said, okay, no problem. He said, and I'll tell you what. He said, if you do this, if you ever need a favor at Meadowlands Racetrack, you just come see me. I said, what favor would I need? I said, okay, fine, no problem. Anyway, I went down to the barn. You
That's
know
a
who
good
was
connection you made, buddy.
you know who was madder than me? Apples. Because you know what bullshit this we got at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We gotta go. He says, you know where North Bergen is? I said, we'll find it. Don't worry. So he put the Apples, got in the truck, put the groom in the back, put the horse, drove there. There was all news people there.
Yeah.
Took the horse out, and Apples just jogged him around the parking lot a couple of times. Put him back, right, and put him back in the barn. And God, I don't think we got home till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. But it did prove to be a good help.
Sure.
Joe DeFrank, and you could call him. He didn't sound like he was happy to see you, but
No, he was a tough kind of guy.
yeah, he was a tough kind of guy.
Yeah.
But those are just some of the things. One day in the fall, Apples came to me and he said, "Listen, I need you to pick up a horse at the barn Saturday night about 9 o'clock and take him over to Lloyd's house in Lloyd Harbor." I said, "Okay." He said, "You're coming with me, right?" He said, "Yeah, I'll come with you." So Lloyd's was one of Houghton's big owners. He had a horse called Green Speed.
Trotter.
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 Green Speed won the Hamiltonian.
Yeah.
Now, he was extremely rich, lived in this huge house, lawn overlooking the harbor, big French doors going in. And he said, what we're going to do is going to keep him out in the truck, and Lloyd is going to say, "Hey, Beverly, I think I hear something in the backyard." And we're going to open the doors, and they're going to bring in Greenspeed and say, "This is what I got you for your birthday." It actually wasn't Greenspeed because he was on his way to Pompano already. It was
Okay.
another one. It was another year. She would know difference. So
Okay.
he said, "This is what we're going to get you," right? So he said, "Okay." So anyway, there was a groom in the back of the truck and Apple's Eye in the front. We drove over, found the house. We're sitting there. He had a huge circular driveway. This guy had a party that you wouldn't believe. The house was rounded and a huge bar built in with 2 bartenders. All of a sudden, Apple says, "Oh, no." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "How did this guy get on the truck?" It was one of Apple's grooms that he didn't want to come. This guy had a wool hat pulled down, beer and everything. And Apples gave the other groom hell. He says, "Make sure that guy doesn't go anywhere near that house, please." Well, we're standing in there having hors d'oeuvres and a drink. And guess who's over there in the living room, filthy and dirty with this groom, right?
Oh my gosh.
Apples got so mad you wouldn't believe it. Anyway, the other groom brings him over. He goes, and Lloyd says, "I think I hear something at the back door." He says, "Beverly, will you go open the door for me, right?" So she says, "Yeah, I don't know. Who could it be? Who comes in the back door?" She didn't have the best of language. She opens the back door and the groom walks to her. So she goes, "Get that fucking thing off this carpeting costs $150 a yard." Right? The horse takes a dump right then and there. Right then and there. They went and picked it up and he didn't care or anything. And she goes, "Oh, that's it. Thanks a lot." She says, "You got yourself a birthday present." But he thought that was gonna surprise her.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the things that I'm just trying to show you, the closeness that I had with Apples. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as things was concerned. And like I said, now his son his son works for me. You know, every
Which
day.
which son works for you?
William Thomas. His name is William Chance Thomas.
Okay,
That's
I don't know.
that's Billy's. That's Apple's son, right?
Right.
Now, he has a brother, Randy Thomas. That's by Apples, and then he has a stepbrother, Cammy Thomas, a Cammy
Right,
Houghton.
right.
Cammy, yeah, Cammy. That's Apples is the father of Cammy, and
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
it's not a secret, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's the way they live their life. That's it. That's fine. Apples. Billy brought the kid up as his own and treated him as his own, and that's the way it is. But Billy doesn't any qualms about it. That's his half brother. Everybody knows that,
Yeah.
and he lives upstate with his sister, or close to his sister. He was, he worked, I think, at Roosevelt, Yonkers for a while, and then he got prostate cancer too, and then
Oh,
he's up there.
Cammy did.
He's Cammy, yeah. He's huge. You don't see him. He's like 250 pounds now. He got huge.
Uh,
He's,
I know he was a very, very, very strict judge, and for
yeah,
somebody that was in the horse business and whose whole family was in the horse
You hit it
business,
on the head, Larry.
he would scratch a horse if he was 1 minute late for the paddock. He didn't want to hear that there were traffic jams on the turnpike. He would just scratch him, and it was I just could never understand that. But
yeah, and that's totally contrary to his younger life. I'm
Right.
going
oh
to
yeah,
leave it at that.
well, Randy
Totally
Perry one
contrary to
day,
how he ran his younger life.
him and
Yeah.
Randy Perry were very close when they were young, and Randy Perry, he called in Randy Perry one day, and he was going to give him a big fine, and Randy says, "Let me tell you something, Cammy. We grew up together. We did a lot of things together, a lot of things that you wouldn't want out. So if I was you, I would just leave me alone and hang up the phone."
Yeah,
And Cammy hung up the phone.
yeah.
Yeah.
He never bothered Randy again, Randy Perry. But
Yeah.
you're right. He was a young kid. He was a little rough around the edges. But then he got straight. He become a judge, but just very, very, very strict. I remember they called him up on the turnpike, and they said there was a bad accident. They shut the turnpike down. They just opened it. We might be 5 minutes late. And he says, if you're 5 minutes late, just turn the truck around. You're not gonna race. And that's how he was.
But
He forgot real quick.
yeah,
Terrible.
I was
He was
coming.
a
I was coming
very.
home. I was coming home from the Meadowlands one day on a Saturday afternoon. I was on. Just came over the George Washington Bridge, and I was on the Cross Island, just getting ready to go up on the Long Island Expressway, and there, up on the corner, was Billy Houghton, and his car had stalled. His car stalled. I saw him. I pulled over. I got him. I said, Billy, what happened? He says, the car stalled. He says, I'll get somebody to pick it up. He says, can you give me a ride home? He lived right next door to me. I live in Laurel Hollow. He lived in Oyster Bay. I said, yeah, sure. He gets guy says, you know that freaking Cammy just came by 5 minutes ago, rolled down the window, waved, says, I'm in a hurry, and kept going.
Unbelievable.
Left his father there. That's an absolute true story. Absolute true story. But he just, that's just how he was. But
Yeah,
what
good thing
are you gonna
is
do?
good thing if we were in a restaurant, just the three of us, there's a lot more we could say, but better off not being.
Yeah, right.
A real lot more.
Yeah, is just I used to have my trucks parked right in a row. When they were right next to my trailer at Kelly's Pawn Shop. I come into work one day and I look. There's the bumper pushed back on this on the right side of the bumper pushed back on this truck. And right on the floor is a broken red tail lens. And all my trucks had what's called truck mate bumpers. They weren't stock. They were like like $800 each. They were nice, big. You put all the plates on chrome, push back, and there was the thing there. And you could actually see where a car backed into it. With the tracks of his tires, knocked out the red tail light. I kept that red tail light. I drove all around Roosevelt Raceway, looking, couldn't find anything. About a week later, I was walking across to get on my trailer. I saw this car come flying around the corner. It was Cammy's car. And as he came across, the right rear tail light was out. I could see the lens was missing. I followed him right down to Houghton's office. He was inside talking to Apples. I said to Cammy, how you doing? Good. Everything all right? Yeah, good. I said, can I show you something? He said, yeah. Came out. Apples walked out. I said, took it out of my pocket. I bent over and I fit it right into the spot in his car. I said, I think you left this in front of my truck the other day. No, that wasn't me. I said, Cammy, please don't insult me. This is the piece. I found your tire tracks, the bumper dented in. And where do you think I got this piece of tail ends, right? And it fits into your car perfectly.
Yeah.
That's just one of those. Apple said, just give me a bill, please. Just give me a bill. Don't say anything to Billy. Just give me a bill. I said, I'm not giving you a bill. I'm just saying it would have been nice if he would have just said, listen, I had an accident.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to charge him for anything, but that's just so now you have.
You should have left a note on your truck or something or anything.
Yeah, but that's that. I mean, I couldn't be mad at him because he's always nice and this and that. And there was one other story that maybe it stuck in my craw. We're hauling Houghton out of Florida. He had about 20 head, 120 head. It was the first time I actually ran out of horses because Billy would send like 20 or 30 to Brandywine, 20 or 30 to Rosecroft, 20, 30 to Liberty Bell. He wanted them all shipped out of Pompano that day. There was something like some kind of disease in the stalls or something. So I had to hire, the only guy I could think of, I wasn't going to hire Brookledge, the only guy I could think of that had two decent trucks was Al DeSimone. Him and I always got along good with him. They were nice guys. They didn't gouge you. They didn't try to steal your customer from you. They did exactly what you said. They were exactly on time. They picked up the horses and they were scheduled to get to Yonkers at feed time, 4 o'clock. Went into Apple's office and Billy was sitting there, the guy that works for me now, because now he wasn't a groom anymore. He worked for his father, Apples. And he said, Billy, I want you to meet Cammy up at Yonkers. He said, 2 of Ronnie's trucks are coming in there, feed time. Make sure those 2 loads of horses get unloaded good and they're put away good. Isn't that Cammy's job? He said, I just want you to do that. He said, okay. So Billy went there, met the truck with Cammy. DeSimone was like 3:45. He came off slick as anything. Did a great job. Got the bill lanes. The horses were all put away, bedded down feed at a quarter after 4 in the afternoon. Next day, Ron from Woodbury goes to the Houghton office. Yeah. Then Apples goes, yeah. He goes, what time those trucks? Now Billy's sitting right there. Son's sitting right there doing his paperwork. What time those trucks? Now you could have asked Billy, right? He was supposed to be with Cammy. He said, what time those trucks get to Yonkers yesterday? I said, 3:45, 4 o'clock. I said, they were unloaded and gone 4:30. He says, well, Cammy says the trucks didn't get there until 9 o'clock at night. He didn't get them put away until 12 o'clock. And that's why he was late coming to work this morning.
Oh my God.
That's him.
I said, I just went like this. I'm standing here, Apple's at the desk here, and Billy. I just went, Bill. He just turned to his father. He said, the truck's dead. He said, the trucks got there at 4 o'clock. They were put away at 4. I was gone at 4:30. I was home at 5:30. You know that. I was with you. Apple says, okay, thank you for coming. That was anyway, so you can go. Imagine that. Billy was mad at me because the trucks didn't get there. Can you imagine that bullshit? So, I would say to Cammy, I said, whenever you come by my shop, you need something, we always do it for you, help you with your car, this and that, everything else. you know, you don't have to do me any good, but I
Don't
don't
do
need
me too
you.
bad.
I don't need you. I don't need you to come up with, oh, come on. I need an excuse. What do you want? Come on. They got over it. Don't worry about it. They'll get
Yeah.
over it. They don't get. I said, what happens if your father gets rid of me? Are you going to give me 100 horses to ship? You
That's
know?
right. It ruin your reputation in 1 minute.
Yeah, because but but that happened so many times with other Houghton children that Apple didn't even call me anymore.
1 second, I just want to respond to somebody that asked me something. Then we'll get right back to you, Ron.
Yeah,
These
sure. Why
stories.
you, if you have any questions, why say it?
Well, let me answer. I must have 100 over here, but
All right.
this one, one of my friends, they said. So this is for Angelique. She says, Larry, can I email you? Angelique, you can email me. My email address is larryrolla123@gmail.com. That's larryrolla123@gmail.com. And for everybody listening, tomorrow we're going to have another show, and no guests, no nothing, just me. And I'm going to respond to everybody that has a comment or anything, because for the last 6 months I've been neglecting you people, according to my friends. So a friend made a suggestion that we'll do a show on Wednesday and just dedicate it to all you nice people that listen every week that I completely ignore sometimes. So tomorrow, just tune in and ask me any questions you want, and so that's it. That's why I'm not responding to anything today. In fact, I just let a bunch of them go down. I don't know if there were any questions here for Ron, but I already got rid of them all. So I don't know. But I'm enjoying these stories. It brings back a lot of memories
A lot
from
of memories is
a
right.
long time ago. Oh, go ahead, Ron. Continue.
Well, let me see. I covered. I had. I don't know if you'd want me, but if you'd want me to come on another show,
That's what we're going to do. You know what?
whenever you want, I have a whole page of all the horses that I've had and how I got them, and every one of them is interesting.
That's
Every
good.
every
You know what
everyone's
we'll do, Ron? What we'll do is we'll wrap this up because we've been on for 2 hours, and Joe will be in touch with you, and make arrangements for you to come on whenever you want. Next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, whenever you want to come right back on, we'll have you back on, and that'll be a great show talking
okay.
about the horses that you had, how you got them, and what happened to them.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll
would like to. I would like to, because today I was just filling you in on, some of the things and the people. It wasn't just all Stanley Dancer and Continental Farm and Houghton. We shipped a lot of other people, but a lot of people don't know that I shipped Jimmy Tactor from Flemington, New Jersey to Hawkinsville, Georgia, when he first went out on his own,
Wow.
and then back north. He previously had worked for uh, uh, John Nordine, him and Pierre Erickson, and now
Mhm.
they what do you want, a couple of Hamiltonians, right?
Yeah.
And also for a long time until he got a little bit bigger, and he got, these guys all now have their own 2-horse trails and 3-horse trails. And I happened to speak to a good driver of mine, Craig Coffin, called me today because I told him I was going to be on the show, and he said that, just mentioned that one time he was hauling the Sire Stake horses from Buffalo and Batavia, and on the side of the thruway was a horse van. You could tell by the bike on the roof. When he got there, it was one of Nordine's. It was Nordine's truck and trailer, and the wheel had broke right off the trailer. And we
Wow.
pulled right over on the side, dropped the ramp down, loaded Nordine's, I'm sorry, Jimmy Tackle's horse, loaded it right on and took the horse on to Batavia, for him. And 'cause the truck was broke down there. So I always was always trying to do things like that. Before we go, I want to ask Larry one more question. I don't know if he remembers. Do you remember a trotter by the name of Soothsayer?
I do.
Soothsayer.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I
Okay.
don't.
Do you remember a guy named Mike Crocco?
Sure.
Okay.
From Florida. Yeah.
Mike Crocco was a personal friend of mine. Mike Crocco got Soothsayer and got stung by the horse bug. He was a good trotter and he started right out. Mike Crocco made all his money. Him and his brothers owned 1,000,000 gas stations up the Florida Turnpike.
He
And
also
then
owned one of the most famous nightclubs on Federal Highway.
September's.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then I was going to say, then they went into the nightclub business. Do
Yeah.
you remember what nightclub he had before September's? That was unbelievable.
Oh,
It
I
was
do know, but I don't know.
October's.
okay. He was not. He had right on Federal Highway before you get to the 14th Street Causeway in the shopping center there. He had a nightclub called Keyboard Cabaret. He had these two twin guys from Las Vegas, two twins, and they played pianos that were butted together.
Yeah.
They were so good that he filled the place every single night. And then he went and put like a railing up and put a railing around with more tables and more tables till and he had the place for years with the Keyboard Cabaret going crazy there.
Yeah.
And right when he always said that when the place is doing the best, that's the time to sell it. And that's when he did. He hooked into the Soothsayer, won a big race in Vernon, and he was totally hooked in harness racing and started putting tons of money into the horses. In the meantime, he had this, like Larry said, he had this nightclub on Federal Highway called September's. It was at the time, and maybe today, one of the nicest places I've ever seen.
He also built a place that had a basketball court in it, a boxing ring in it.
That's right. That was
gigantic. Yeah.
That was his next restaurant.
Yeah.
That was the next restaurant. But this September's, when you walked in, it was a whole top layer with a full bar, and the bars are full. You walk down another layer, another bar. The bar was full. And then one more layer with their own bar. Now, it's 3 bars so far now. And then a dance floor. You walk down to a dance floor, and out the dance floor was a swimming pool with another bar, right? And he had a 12-piece band. They sounded like the exact artists that they were. And this dance floor was a stainless steel, and that place was packed to the hilt. My wife and I used to go there, and like I said, I became friends with him. I said to him, how do you keep control of this place? You got 5 bars here. He says, I have to hire 5 guys dressed up in suit and ties every night just to wander around to make sure that the waiters and waitresses don't pull a game on me. He says, and I still can't catch them all. He said, but they come up with such exclusive ploys, like especially if a person starts to pay cash, forget about it. But he had to have these people roaming around to make sure that the waiter and the waitress aren't stealing.
Let me tell you 2 quick stories about Mike Crocco, and he was a good guy and a good friend. I bought a horse from him for $150,000, I think, and we made a deal, and it was for Aaron Wagman, and it was all cash. So I told him I'd bring it to his club that night. So me and a couple of friends of mine went up there to the club, and I walked in his back office with him and to give him the money. And all of a sudden we heard a big ruckus, and we went outside, and there were about 20 guys fighting. And me and Mike broke everything up. And who was on the bottom of the pile was my guys. It was my guys that got in a fight with whatever customers. And me and Mike broke it up, and I offered to pay for any damage, but he wouldn't take any money. The other story was I went to him one time and I said, "Listen," I says, "Alan Finkelson, who used to be the from Monticello, he went up to Pompano, became the head of publicity up there. He called me in his office. I was very friendly with him, and he introduced me to George Steinbrenner. He wanted to give me all his horses and take them away from Mike Rocco. So I told Alan, I says, don't call him in yet. I says, make the meeting for tomorrow night. So that night I went to see Mike Rocco, and I says, Mike, uh, uh, George Steinbrenner wants to take the horses away from you and give them to me. Do you want to lose these horses? Was there a problem? And he says, yeah, he don't ever pay. And every time I ask him, he says, we got in a big fight and I threw him out. I don't want to train his horses no more. He says, you do what you want, but he's a tough payer. So I went back and I told Alan, I says, Alan, look, I just bought that barn at Sunshine Meadows. I won't have enough room for him. And I introduced him to Debbie Evilsizer, and we gave her all the Steinbrenner's horses.
Huh.
So my two stories of Mike Rocco. But he was a great guy. Then he got sick. He used to walk the beach every morning in the deep sand. He had some kind of sickness, and that's how he died. I forget what it was. I don't remember.
Yeah, he was he was a character, that's for sure. It just the he when we went to his nightclub, like I said, it was a totally happening place, and the band was unbelievable up on the stage and the dance floor. But right on the corner of the dance floor, on the bottom, right to the side of the stage, was a little door, and it had a stainless glass window in it about this big, and it said Cafe September. And I said to Mike, I said, what's in there? He goes, oh, restaurant. So okay. My Susan, my friend, my wife's cousin and her husband were visiting us in Florida, and one Thursday night I said, I'd like you to go and see this Cafe September, and you know what? Why don't we just try the restaurant? I never heard of it. It's just a restaurant there. He said, I don't know, it's a big deal, but we might as well eat there. So I said, something told me that I should call for a reservation. So I called and I said, Mike answered the phone. I said, Mike, it's Ronnie. I said, I want to come to your place tonight. I said, can we get a reservation in Cafe September for 4 people? He goes, oh, I don't know. You better hold on. I said to my wife, is he kidding? I thought this was like a Fridays in there, right? So he came back and he said, okay, he said, listen, I squeezed you in. He said, I just want to let you know, he said, we require jackets. I said, all right, fine, no problem. And that was it. So he went there. Now, when you went there, the music and the noise was incredible. When you walked into Cafe September, that door, and you shut the door, it was totally silent. There was maybe 8 tables. A table here, a table there. There's a big glass window looking into a beautiful atrium type situation. A couple of tables. Stanley Dancer sitting here. Lou Guida sitting over here. Some other guys sitting here. Everybody from the racetrack. I went over, said hello to Lou Guida. I said, do you like this place? He goes, I come here every night. We sat down. Mike came over, and he said, introduced to the Major D. He said he will help you with everything. I said, thank you. So we looked. He had the best crystal you could have, the best china. The spoon in the front, a whole. I mean, I didn't realize. So I said, Mike, I didn't realize this was kind of. He says, this is a 5-star restaurant. So you look up in Florida. I don't care from Miami to anywhere. This is a 5-star restaurant. Well, we had the best meal I think we ever had. We each had 20-pound porterhouse that they split for 2 people. Took a 3-pound lobster, took it out of the shell, stuffed it, put it back in the shell, and that's what the 4 of us had. So we each had, that combination, me and him, the drinks, everything. Zabayon for dessert. I said to my wife, "This the coffee got to be bad because something has to be bad in this place." It wasn't. And when he came over, we asked the maitre d', and the maitre d' did all the serving for the whole restaurant. Only 8 tables. People brought everything out, but the maitre d' served. So I said, "I'd like to. Can we have the bill, please?" And he came over. He said, Mike Rocco said, "We appreciate you coming, and he wants you to be his guest." So
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. This had to be a this had to be a $800 dinner for 4 people. And what we did was just, we figured out what the dinner was, and then, heavily tipped the maitre d'. But it was one of the best dinners we ever had. On the way out, I said, "Mike, thank you so much. It's not necessary." I said, "But I didn't realize." He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "You go look at this Zagots or blah blah whatever." But it was amazing that was like a hidden thing there that a lot of people didn't realize. When
Diamond
he
in the
told
rough.
me it was a diamond in the rough, but all the big guys were there. Fred
Oh,
Van Lennep was there. He's the guy on Castle and Farm.
hmm
Yeah, you know why Brian Cashman's the general manager of the Yankees, right?
Well,
You ever figure out why he got that job?
I never really thought about it, but no, go ahead.
Okay, the reason Brian Cashman got the job at the general Yankees is because Brian Cashman's father, right, would let George Steinbrenner come to Castleton Farm and look at all the yearlings, right? And because he did that favor for George, he go, "I want that one, that one, that one." Gave his son the job as general manager of the Yankees. He never was
Wow.
manager. He never was manager of anything, any baseball team. I mean, he's a good manager. He's a good manager, but I'm just saying, he won World Series. But because Cashman let give him the pick of the litter, let's say, and therefore he gave his son a job, and he's been there. What 20 since he was there since 1996, wasn't he?
Wow.
97 when they won that World Series against you know uh, the Braves. But that's basically what it was. But
Two,
he's
two, two things came up, and let me just mention them. And one says that Ron certainly came prepared tonight, and the other one said one of the best guests you ever had. The other one said Ron was a great guest. So
oh
you
wow.
have to come back by popular demand.
Is
And
that true, Larry? Larry, where do I send you that check now?
and man, it's on the comments here. There was a
Oh, it
lot
does.
more,
All
but I
right. Well,
never.
that's nice. Yeah, and
And
I'm going I'm going to tell you definitely. It's up to you. You tell me when you want me to come back. I see it's easy. Like I said, I have this whole page of racehorses that I got, and
okay,
every one of them is very interesting, and how I got it.
Ron, you tell Joe. I know you speak together all the time. You want to come next Tuesday? Whenever is good for you is good for me. No
Okay.
problem. You can say
Okay.
it right now. If you want to come on next Tuesday, you got it. If
Okay.
you
I'll,
want to
I'll
wait, go
okay. I'll
ahead.
come on next Tuesday.
Okay, next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Don't lose that paper now with
I'm
the
not. And when I start off, I would can either one of you? We won't. I know it's getting late, so we'll just stop. Can either one of you guess which trainer got me into the horse business? My very first horse.
Wow, I don't know.
Your very
What
first trainer.
year? What year did you
It
buy
was
your?
1985.
What racetrack?
Well, let me put it this way: it was Gary Lewis.
Gary
Gary.
Lewis.
Yeah, by mistake. By mistake. He wanted me to go to the Harrisburg sale and buy 3 horses for him. Well, tell you a quick story. Buy 3 horses for him, and he said that we'll sell 2, we'll get one racing and we'll sell it. I said okay. I said, but I don't want to own any racehorses, Gary. He said okay. So one of the horses was a horse called Postseason. Got the horse ready, got him to the races, qualified him. We raced him. He won his first race. And of course, I was hooked to death, right? But we said we're going to sell him. We sold him to Gary McNichols. What's his name's brother there?
Mickey's brother.
Mickey's brother, right? And his name was Fitzgerald. His name was post. I'm sorry. The horse name was Fitzgerald Lobel, not postseason. Fitzgerald Lobel, and we sold him to him. My end of the deal was $4,000. I gave it to my mother and father. They went on a cruise. That summer, I'm looking in the papers. Really, my wife is the one that got me into it. Looking in the paper, and I said, Sue, remember that horse we bought with Gary Lewis, Fitzgerald Lobel? She said, yes. She just won the open trot over at Yonkers. She says, how long have you shipped horses over there? Why can't we have a racehorse? And that was the start of the whole thing.
Wow.
I said, you want a racehorse? I said, okay. The next year, when I went back with Gary Lewis, we bought the 3 horses, sold 2. One was postseason. We raced him. The very first race he won. Second race he won. Sold him to Gary McNichols. And then I was stuck ever since there. And from there on, my father-in-law put me on to the next horse. And when the next time I come out, that was Long Tall. That's the horse I told you about. We came to Roosevelt, and that was the start of the horses. But all the horses that I got were kind of by accident. People put me onto them. You know, people tell me about them. My father-in-law was the maitre d' at the bar, cocktail lounge at Pompano, and he became friendly with all the trainers and the trainers' wives. You know, they'd have owners come into town, and they would say, Vic, you know, I need a nice table for so and so. And then they would say to him, Vic, you know, your son-in-law, I see your son getting horses. Tell him to come by the barn. I think we have a nice horse that maybe he might like. And you know, I would go look, may like it, but that's how I found out about a lot of the horses that from my father-in-law, and he just flat out picked 3 or 4 of them for me that turned out good. Other ones I found myself, and went on from there. But like I said, I think you're going to be really, and your listeners are going to be really interested in some of the stories of how I got these horses and what I had to do to get them. You know, sometimes you can't just offer someone a price for a horse and he sells it to you, right? Because the last minute they decide they want more money for him.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So that's basically it, Larry. So the next time I can tell you about
The next time will be Tuesday, and bring that yellow piece of paper with you.
I got it right here, and I want to thank you for having me on, Joe. Nice to meet
Ron,
you.
it was
This is
great
a
to
really
have you.
good guy right here, Larry. Joe. He's really a good guy. He's a good friend. We met him in Florida. We had a good time. I think the first time I met him, I felt like I knew him.
Yeah,
And
we hit it right off.
Like I said, this year I want to hook up with him again and hopefully have his father for dinner. And he's when he finally gets out of rehab. Is he out yet, Joe?
No, not yet.
So how much
Well,
longer does he have?
Probably, I would say 3 to 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, Larry. Well, like again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I will talk to
Well,
you.
we
Ronnie,
will
you did a
see
great
you.
job. You're very good.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate
we'll
it.
see you next Tuesday.
All right. Thanks,
Same
Larry.
thing. I'll call you about 7:30 next Tuesday, and
Okay.
we'll make sure that we don't screw up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on,
All right.
Ron.
All
I'll
right.
talk
Thanks.
to you.
Thanks for having me. And Joe, take care. I'll talk to you.
Ronnie, take care. Say hello to your wife.
I will.
Joe,
Thank you.
Joe,
Good
I'll
All right,
night.
talk
Larry.
to you. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night, folks. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Wednesday, tomorrow, we're going to talk just to you people that have all these comments on. So Sundance, Angelique, just everybody, whatever you want to ask me, we'll just talk. And I just saw Manny says Joe looks like a hitman, stone cold expression. Well, let me tell you something, Manny. Joe is one of the toughest guys that I know, and I know a lot of guys, but a real good guy. Good night, everybody.